Welcome to Charting Change in Legal. I'm one of your co-hosts, Caroline Hill, and I'm joined by my esteemed colleague.
Ari Kaplan. I'm an analyst who covers the legal industry. Caroline, wonderful to see you. Great to speak today.
Wonderful to see you, Ari. Wonderful to see you. Yeah, so busy times. Feel like we've got a nice little cadence towards this autumn. We're come out of the summer, and it's great to speak to you again so soon. How are things? Like busy times? I feel everyone seems to be back fully in the swing after summer, albeit that, feels like summer was forever ago.
I feel like for what summer was in terms of activity, people preparing for different events, the fall seems to be an acceleration of that.
Yeah,
And, this period, September through to, I guess, November, all over the world, it's just fascinating to me. And every time I talk to somebody about a new event, that they're not sure will work seems to just be even more successful than they could have anticipated. So there's
good to hear. That's
there's
good to
real
hear.
there's real interest. There are lots of issues that people are working through, and of course, when I'm talking about things at events, I really try to find the issues on the margins that
Yeah,
are not as familiar, if there's such a thing, like
yeah,
just use cases, or I think there's a lot of topics that people have been digging into, the implications of these things, how to prepare or how to plan, or what it means for your role, or what your role could do to elevate the role of others is a topic that I think is more nuanced and
yeah.
really important to cover.
We are in full swing. So we're hosting, it's Legal IT Insider's 30th anniversary coming up. So we, on the 30th of October, are hosting an event ourselves. So we're not an events company and don't have any plans to be. But we are hosting an afternoon session for IT directors, talking about security and AI, talking about data management, and also talking about DMS, like just three panels. I have to say it's taking over my life. It's so busy right now. But it's what we're trying to do is make it really interactive so that it's a real conversation. So we've got panels, but we're bringing back that real audience interaction. We're trying to find a throw around microphone again. Do you remember those things? They were really popular. What happened to those? Maybe that should
Rob
be our
Amirun
discussion.
uses them at Lexpo, and it's
Oh,
it's called like a mic box or something. It's a
yeah.
soft box that you can put a microphone in, and when the audience has questions, we toss it to each other, and it's a lot of fun and extremely effective. So I
That's what
highly
we're
encourage use of it.
doing.
Yes,
Oh, I
yes.
did not know. So we're bringing back the mic box because we want to make it really interactive. People's time is precious. So we're full swing planning, doing panel sessions and planning, and we've got a competition for the biggest innovation. Actually, can I do a plug? If anyone is listening to this and you haven't filled in our innovation
Tom,
in if you haven't filled in our competition on the biggest innovation in legal in the last 30 years, fill it in because we're going to be judging the competition over the next few weeks, the next week
the
even.
biggest innovation in the last 30
Yeah,
years?
like to impact on legal tech, but it's in visual format. So it's a picture. We're going to create a picture book. So we've had some really funny entries. So like people are using AI to create pictures. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we're printing it out for our event on the 30th. And it's what is the biggest innovation, in your opinion, to have impact on the legal tech sector in the last 30 years in visual form? Create like an image. It might be like people have come up with all kinds of stuff, and we're going to print out the winners. We're going to create it to hand out at the conference, which is going to be. It's just all of this. So as you know, like Legal IT Insider, it's very serious, but also we've got to have some fun, right? Like so we've got all sorts of stuff happening. We're printing out the very first issue of the Legal IT Insider from 1995 to hand out to people at the conference, which is and some of it's going to be very emotional. We've also got a surprise of someone who's coming to the drinks party to hand out an award. So it's all going on.
What were the topics that were covered in that issue in 1995?
Oh my goodness, it's amazing. So it's the internet was new, right? So there was a lot of like you too could have a website for law firms. And and at the time firms were like, no, we think it's no, that's not for us.
I took an HTML coding class in 1999, I remember, thinking that you should know how to do that. I'd never really mastered it, but I remember thinking it was important. I also would like to submit something for your greatest
Please.
innovation for 30th. I'm just going to tell you what I think it is. I think it is the removal of the hyphen from email and e-discovery and e-commerce and e-business. There you go. I just want to throw it out there. I've said it.
Can you please
For all the
submit that?
listeners. Yeah,
You
I
need
will.
to submit that because we're judging it. You know, all of our panel, it's the panelists who are judging this, and they may not know this yet. But anyway, um, they're judging it in our panel prep. So yeah, you need to submit a picture
I'm
of that.
gonna, yeah, just like a cutting of the hyphen. I think that's gonna be incredible. Anyway, yeah. So I think that as we power through the end of the year, I always find that people have this tendency to ineffectively make New Year's resolutions. But I'm usually thinking of the beginning of the year kind of at the end of the third quarter, beginning of the fourth quarter, because it takes time to put things into place. And if you think you're starting the year in January and that something is going to materialize in January as a result of that planning, I at least have experienced this that, that's a mistake. The better thing to do is to proactively think, let me put this into place. I just had a call this morning and someone said, we were talking about something for October, and they said, well, we're thinking about maybe December. And I thought, of course you are. Like, if you're right, like it makes perfect sense to give a little time. So
Yeah,
this time of year, I'm often thinking about strategic areas of opportunity for next year as opposed to what's going to happen through I mean, there are obviously things that are taking place this year, but I also think that it's important for people to consider these issues proactively.
do you know what's such a pleasure about having had these conversations with you for so long is that I remember being here this time last year and we talked about this. And I know it's a pleasure rather than,
Yeah.
like, so, and I wonder, do you, I mean, because you're super organized and,
Super.
I know you,
I have a
I know
t-shirt
you,
with a
I know
giant O. It's
you,
super.
I know you think about these things. Have you gone back to this time last year when we had this similar conversation? Have you gone back to those objectives and worked out how much of them you fulfilled or no? Because I
It's
would never be capable of doing that because I'm not
No, but it's
systematic
less
enough.
complicated than that. It's not so much did I accomplish. I set out in September on September 22nd to do X. On September 22nd the following year, did I do X? It's more like I want to do certain things next year. Have I done them? So I think the answer there is absolutely yes. And I just think that most people, many people, I certainly didn't think that you needed as much lead time to plan projects or to connect with folks or to all of a sudden develop a consensus on something. And
Yeah.
the truth is you do. So at this time of year, people are generally focused on pushing toward the end as
Mm,
opposed to setting the foundation for the beginning.
yeah.
And so when you think of it that way, I just like you've been talking about your wonderful event on the 30th of October, not of September. And I think it's important that people realize this has been going on and being planned for a long, long time. And obviously, it's a milestone. So that milestone
Mm,
has been
amazing.
expected to arrive. So congratulations. Very
Thank
exciting.
you so
Yeah.
much. Yeah, no, I love it. And I think you're absolutely right about, planning ahead. The other thing I think is really important. We've been running to stand still for a long time. Like everybody's so busy. Like, it's boring to even say you're busy. I'm trying to avoid saying I'm busy when someone says, "How are you?" Everyone goes, "Oh, so busy." And I'm trying really hard not to be that person anymore. I'm like, let's just take that as read. We're all busy. But so I feel like I'm always thinking about what I haven't done. Like I constantly, oh, I didn't speak to someone. Oh, I did. But I was preparing the Orange Rag, which is out on Wednesday as it comes out. Our Orange Rag newsletter comes out every month. Well, it comes out 10 times a year. And I was looking through a lot of the stories, and in all of them, I've had a conversation with the people and had a dive into what it is that they're doing. So Deloitte's partnered with Legora, had a conversation with them, and I was thinking it's really important to remind ourselves of what we have done. I'm constantly thinking about what I haven't done, but actually it's been a busy year. I think it maybe is time to start. It's not time to slow down yet, but it's time to maybe also think, what have I achieved, and start to give ourselves a bit of credit as well.
At the end of every year, we would be asked to do some type of self-evaluation memo at when I practiced, and I practiced for nearly 9 years, but that was from 97 to 2006. So it was a while back. But I still remember that, and I still remember taking that time to think about what I've done. You could probably, go through your billings if you were methodical about also highlighting non-billable time and other time that may be outside the framework of what you're compensated for to understand that. But that's a good exercise. I think that just the quiet time of thinking. As a swimmer, I have that, right? I swim twice a week
Yeah.
and I often but you can't do anything with it because there's no
Yeah.
place to write it down. And then by the time I get out of the water, I've basically forgotten it because I'm on to something else. And so I think that's a challenge. And as a runner, those are all moments, they're I remember there was a period where people were advocating for crayons in the shower because you could like write down, I had a great idea, and you'd write it down on the wall or something, on the floor, on the bottle. I don't know. I never had them, but I think that's that quiet time, even if you were like walking. Sometimes I would do that. I would walk and then have my phone and I can dictate some thoughts and ideas as we kind of get closer to the end of the year.
Yeah.
There's something to that. And in fact, there's something to that because more and more of the rote work that you do, we're all kind of trying to figure out how to eliminate that. I think people are proactively trying to evaluate what is it that I do and which pieces of it can I discard and have something else do it quicker and more effectively, and therefore
Yeah.
give me time to think. So I feel like there will be a lot more time for that in the next year or two.
What about, so you're talking about things being done more quickly, and so I know it's interesting. The other thing that I think people will be reflecting on is the progress in terms of what tech can do and what their job is going to look like. I think this is going to be a period of reflection soon. And I know it's interesting. There's been some reports, hasn't there, about technology and the impact on jobs. And I think so. You know more about this than me actually. But I think you were saying that it was finding that it was jobs in jeopardy, and legal was not one of those jobs in jeopardy.
Yeah, the USA Today, I saw an article and it just talked about the fact that it it almost had a bit of a misunderstanding of what happens in the legal profession. It said knowledge workers are in jeopardy, but then it said paralegals or legal assistants may be threatened in terms of the longevity of their career, but lawyers won't. As if there's some distinction of and then it used the example of going into court, which also reflected a misunderstanding of the fact that lots of people do something other than go to court. And it was a
Yeah.
very interesting observation that I don't think really captured what what the legal profession is now and how it operates. And I'm not suggesting that it was incorrect in that,
Yeah.
that the law is not safe and your job is in jeopardy. I just thought it's a much deeper
Mm.
conversation, and that look requires a lot more analysis, and that each of us knows what it is that we do. And I
Mm.
actually have recently done some research speaking specifically to trial lawyers who are incredibly experienced advocates, and some of them were under the misimpression that they were, in fact, not as secure because technology is changing and the environment is changing, and it was actually a fun conversation to have with them because it's easier to replicate the experience of 1 year writing a memo than it is of 30 years of complex advocacy,
A
right? That is
hundred
a
percent.
very, very hard.
Why did they think they were at risk in terms of the advocacy though from tech? Because I would
I
have
just,
thought with
I
all
just,
of the
I just
things,
think that
that's the least being on your feet in court right now is that's your, that's not a worry.
yeah, I just think that they are less familiar with all the tools available, so they just
Mm.
see tools disrupting, and so that disruption will happen
Yeah,
at an equivalent level across all disciplines, but
yeah,
that's not necessarily the case. So it's really interesting. So as people, and I put myself through this exact exercise, as people start to think about what may change, they should spend time thinking about what they do and where
yeah,
they're focusing, and sometimes acknowledging that and then adapting
yeah,
is your greatest defense to whatever the evolution, happens to bring. And I think that's a really important discussion that we're not necessarily having.
yeah.
And, one of those kind of on the margins conversations, which is not in any way couched as a what's threatening, where should there be fear? These words are constantly used.
Mm,
And I think it's much more about evaluating and being thoughtful and where you're providing value. That's a great conversation. That
yeah,
conversation needs to be had more, needs to be a greater consideration, and is something that we've addressed for a long time.
yeah,
But
yeah,
when you're thinking about the specific tasks or work or accomplishments,
yeah,
as you mentioned, think about what you've done as opposed to what you've missed. When you think about that, think about which of those things that you've done have been most valuable. Can you lean into that and allow for the natural progression of eliminating some of the things that you do to take place? And again, I'm almost speaking from a personal standpoint because my much of what I do is creating content that connects to buyers to sellers. And so as I'm trying to facilitate those conversations or create those connections, I'm also thinking there's probably a piece of this that maybe I won't be able to do soon, whatever that soon
mm,
means. And so what does that mean in terms of my time and where can I provide more value? And I think people who are thinking about that are going to give themselves an advantage.
yeah. But that USA Today piece, the fact that you've seen that, I mean, I agree wholeheartedly. It's really great points about value, strategy, and leaning in, and then, but then just on the USA Today, like there's all this slightly scaremongery pieces or just journalism where they haven't really necessarily asked the questions. And I think this is for me, as we come to the end of the year, it is really important for all of us to just sort of do our job properly. Like one of my current bugbears is, you know, sort of press releases being sent out and people like not doing their jobs in terms of actually asking the questions and engaging. And I feel like, we're quite far down the line. The journalism is not new, but like we need to just be wary about the stuff that we're putting out, like, and it needs to be your type of you don't class yourself as a journalist, you're an analyst, and that's a great place to be because you're having these conversations with people and you're putting out great research and but oh, I thought you were pinning your arm down. But yeah, but so, but I think it's beholden on everybody to just be a little careful, about what we're spreading because it's like whether it be is your job in fit you would fear, is your job in danger? Like those trial lawyers who are thinking their jobs are in danger, it's beholden on everybody to be responsible. It always has been, but let's just remind ourselves of that. We're responsible for putting out accurate information on the basis of conversations, hopefully, not just press releases. You can tell this is my bugbear, Ariane. This isn't your bugbear,
Well,
this is the
no, but
bugbear.
you make a good point about kind of this line between provocative and productive.
Mm,
And that tends to be a challenge. We want people to read what we write, but we also want people to react in a way that's going to provide, at least I do, I want them to
mm,
benefit from what I'm
yeah.
trying to convey. And, I have in my e-discovery unfiltered report, I always ask the question, what matters most when you're working with a vendor or a law firm? Like, what are the qualities that matter most to you? And, and they're always about a partnership or responsiveness or quality of work and being proactive, knowing my business, things like that. But there are elements in there. I also ask the question, what makes you switch? what keeps something sticky, but why do you move? And it's not necessarily to say, oh, your clients may move. It's more like this is why people move,
Yeah.
and you should be informed so that you can avoid all the issues that drive people to move, and that will likely, help your team be better and be more responsive, but also recognizing, help your team recognize that the strength of that client relationship is paramount. And in addition, obviously, let's assume baseline is great work, but that relationship matters, and anything you do should build it as opposed to dilute it in some way.
Yeah. We're very thoughtful, aren't we, towards today? Like
We're
it's not
just
even
really
imagine
thoughtful. I
imagine
can't even
how
imagine two other people who are chatting with each other who are more thoughtful.
can you
And
imagine by the end of the actual year, like
I feel like I'm going to send you a handwritten note right now. That's how thoughtful I feel.
I think it's going to be a busy period. I think that we're going to have a lot more to reflect on. And I think it'll be interesting. Yeah, I think I'm going to start preparing, Ari, for the end of the year now. I'm going to be you've been
I'm
an
packing. I
inspiration.
got a duffel bag right here. I'm packing. I'm getting ready. One carry on, one check bag. I'm in it. Let's do it.
Well, it's a big week for you, so I have to say, happy Rosh Hashanah, and it's so I know it's your New Year.
Thank
So,
you very
and are
much.
you gonna take any time out? No.
I will be out. I will be with my family, which I'm lucky to, to spend time with. And obviously wishing you all good things, wishing our listeners all good things.
Yeah.
And as always, a privilege to chat with you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We'll speak soon.
Thank you.